Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you're here on the show with us. We have a couple of great guests, and I say a couple because our third guest, Marilyn Richards, will not be able to join us today. They're in her area. They're having terrible thunderstorms out there, and there is no internet connectivity. I just got off the phone with her. But yes, my name is Robert W. Jones, and I'm glad you're here on the iNetrepreneur Radio Network, and I'm looking forward to having a fun show. I start off the show each and every time. We're just talking a little bit about what's going on in the community. And I'd like to say that our fourth book in this series, it's this one right there, 365 Days of Gratitude Quotes, is out on the bookshelves and at Amazon. So please pick up your copy there. It's a #1 international book series called The Art of Connection. This one is 365 Days of Gratitude Quotes. And you can go to mybook.to, that's mybook.to/Art of Connection and the number 4, and you can pick up your copy and have it sent right to your door because, you know, Amazon loves you, right? Also, I'd like to remind everyone that we have a Facebook page and an iNetrepreneur YouTube channel. You can go to facebook.com/iNetrepreneur Radio or youtube.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. Like us, bookmark us, then you don't have to worry about spelling iNetrepreneur Network ever again. And, such a great thing. Also, we have a couple of magazines. One is the iNetrepreneur Network magazine, and you can subscribe there or at the other magazine website, which is thecontemporarywoman.com. At thecontemporarywoman.com, you can subscribe and get both issues delivered right to your email box. What do we love about technology? Also, we can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. You can go there to find out where our chapter meetings are, our online programming, our radio shows, any events that we have coming up in our author literary service series. And what's wonderful about the author literary series is it really is for the entrepreneur author, and the entrepreneur author has very different needs than authorpreneurs. So, come check us out if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to be published, or you'd like to know more about what publishing looks like for the entrepreneur. Come visit us. It's at ntevents.net. We have that every Thursday from 11 to noon, and that is Arizona time, which is also Pacific time right now. And I'd like to bring our first guest to the show today. And my first guest is Mr. Buddy Thornton. Buddy, how are you?
Robert, I'm doing really great. It's been a roller coaster the last few weeks, but, we just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So, here we go.
Yeah, and isn't that what we are? Isn't that what we're made of? A little bit of resilience along with persistence and, just trying to be consistent in the excellence that we want to provide.
Yeah, some people ask me, what did it take to get where you are today? And I tell them, well, maybe a little bit of intelligence, but mostly determination, persistence, and grit, just good old-fashioned hard work. Nothing beats it.
Yeah, and in today's environment, there are a lot of people, and they try to shortcut it, but I think what they find is shortcuts, actually impede their progress. There is a little bit to actually working harder and being consistent and persistent to, meet your goals. And again, everyone, I'm with Buddy Thornton. He's the co-founder of Fighters for Hope. And he's also known as the Positive Social Change Agent. You can contact him at buddypscapro@gmail.com or call him at 480-861-1371. Again, you can reach him at Buddy. Buddy, what is that? But say that for me, Buddy. We have Buddy PSCA Pro.
Yeah, that's Positive Social Change Agent Pro.
PSC. There you go. You got to like that. Or you can call them at 480-861-1371. Buddy, it's like, one of the things that I found as we keep evolving as business owners, we all have differing levels of, utilizing technology in all different facets and phases of our lives. And, one of the biggest things that I found is, we're now into the kind of like what I call the third act of technology, web-based growth. And that is now AI, and I get a lot of, people who are on different sides of the fence. And, some of them love AI and some of them dislike AI. Some of them are worried about what's going to happen to intellectual property. Others are worried about what's going to happen to ideation, invention, creative ideas. And, how are you handling this whole new world of AI as an editor, and also the editor of the Art of Connection book series? What's in it for you? What does AI do for you? And what do you see on the positive side and the negative side?
Well, the positive side of AI is there's no such thing as a human who can compile data better than AI. If it's written properly, the programmers keep their bias out of it. AI can compile anything that you target, and it gets everything. It doesn't miss anything. You don't have to worry about whether or not you spell something right or wrong, because it kind of like coagulates all that into one big junk. However, the problem with AI is it really targets a compendium of average. It's never looking for optimal. Even if you program it to try to look for optimal, it doesn't understand what optimal is, because it has to take into consideration all of the data you feed into it. So let's say AI, picks up 3 million data points on a topic, and you try to tell it what's optimal, it's going to just scratch its head and go, oh, I'm going to hit right here, right? And it's going to be right at that 50 percentile. It's going to be average. It's never going to be above average. So to me, the positive part of AI is it does bring you everything to the table. The way a human needs to leverage AI as a tool is we need to be discriminately looking at that pile and saying, this is not relevant, this is not relevant. Just because AI found it doesn't mean that it needs to be in the mix. Yeah. Once you remove everything that doesn't need to be in there, take the time to see what AI has left, but then write it yourself, create it yourself, because that's giving you the best of two worlds, the best compiling tool in the world and the absolutely best brain in the world, the human brain.
And it's really interesting. I think another thing that AI does is it has the ability to replicate information and send out information in masses, based upon certain thoughts. And I see that a lot in our social media. I see that a lot in the emails that I'm starting to get. And one of the things about AI is fake personalization or pseudo personalization. And I really think that we have to start looking at AI in such a way as I tend to be a person that gets a little bit insulted when I'm receiving AI from people I know very well, but yet I can tell it's coming from an AI source where it's, they're trying to make it personalized for me because it fills out the fields, but it actually isn't personalized for me because they're not hitting me in the target audience. And what I mean is recently I received an email from someone who I care a lot about, and we've done work together. And the AI was actually pushing someone else in their event of someone who actually hurt me business-wise. And when I look at that and here's the AI on behalf of that person sending this request to me, it show, AI is not discerning my relationship, and they know that the relationship I had with this other person, was rather torturous for me. And I think sometimes we have to be very, very careful in how we also use AI too, because AI doesn't care about the relationships that we developed. And I think if we rely on it too much, it can kind of create some real distance between people because of AI's inability to disassociate those good relationships that we have versus those that are not optimal.
I wanted to talk to someone about where they were going with the Chat GPT series. Mm-hmm. And the first thing they said was, well, we're trying to optimize it to the best that we can, but there are 3 barriers that we can't get through. and you brought one very, very clearly to the table. AI will never be able to read human nuance. We know that 7 to 15% of communication is verbal. The other 85 to 93% is nonverbal. And because we get familiar with people, especially those people in our in-group, there's no way AI can duplicate and fool us with someone that we already know. Mm-hmm. Because we read the tics and the little tiny nuances that actually make someone who they are. And how do you program that into AI? And how can you program into AI the dynamic change that occurs over time? So the time variable, as opposed to the photograph looking at a video, AI can't nuance at speed, even if it learns to nuance one picture. That's why deep fakes can get you with one picture. But if you interact with a deep fake for even moments, you're going to know that it's not who you think you're talking to. And then the third component they say is because it can't do nuancing, it also cannot read nuancing. So AI hasn't learned the delicate quality of abstraction, basically.
Yeah. You know, and you bring up another point, which is really interesting to me. AI at this point is not talking to, it's not meeting each person at where they're at. And so when you do that and you're actually sending something out, which is what I call middle of the bell curve communication, you know, those higher end people who may feel like they're more deserving of a higher level of communication, whether it be word styling, you know, complexity of etc. You know, sometimes they start to get very turned off on it because they don't feel like they're communicating in peer-to-peer language. You know, tell us a little bit about that, and have you experienced that?
I have actually. When we query AI, if we go above its head or above its programming bias, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask you to reframe the question. And the reason it does that is because, again, like you're saying, it doesn't have the ability to leap from one boundary to another. A human may be able to leap that boundary, but an AI can't. Now, we can train AI to evolve. In other words, it can, if you interact with it over time, it's going to learn some of your mannerisms. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't mimic what we have as far as free choice or choice dynamics. What it does is it will follow a pattern that it's predicting. And the one thing we know is that humans are idiosyncratic. We are not predictable. We are somewhat, as I use the quotes, we're somewhat predictable, but on a whim, we can decide to do something totally different. And AI doesn't have that capacity, and it shouldn't, because it doesn't have that built in. How do you build that in?
Well, yeah. How do you build in the power of redirect? How do you build in the power of pivot? How do you, build in the power of sense? Because maybe even a smell comes into my environment and it changes the direction of my thoughts. Those are amazing when it also comes to creativity and design. You know, and another thing I always look at is, when I'm looking at working with kids, one of the things that we always are taught is, it's always about safety and it's security before counseling and therapy. And I think about that as, in AI as well. It's always about safety and security before it goes into learning and connecting. And one of the things is you start to get so much artificial intelligence, so much of that out there, it really promotes a place where you could have that proverbial wolf in lamb's clothing. And I always really, tell people before you just hop onto the next shiny object in AI, know your source, because that source could actually look at you as a resource for it, can it?
Well, one of the things, one of the sayings that I love to use is AI can never unring a bell. Once it learns something, how do you get it to filter it out? If you start building in the filters that humans grow up with over time, and you try to, it's just like a legal system. We don't tell you what you can do. We just tell you what you can't do and let you figure out the rest yourself. So AI is in the same boat. Once it learns something or it hears something, it's going to try to integrate it because that's the way it's programmed. And it doesn't have the ability to say this doesn't apply. That's why it always returns an average result. And the average can be skewed. You know, if you ask an AI hiring program, for example, who is the perfect person for a role, and it starts going through millions of data points, it's going to come up with some things that in polite society we don't consider being so polite.
Yeah. And it really leads me to, character, really leads me to value, sincerity, integrity. I'm not sure that is designed into AI yet. I'm not sure that it looks at every situation in such a way as a human would. I mean, one of your first book, if not your first book, buddy, was based upon ethics and the role that ethics, that role of ethics in today's world and even in the business environment. If you were to sit down and look at the role of your book and ethics and how you would apply it to AI, you'd probably have a whole nother book series, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if I was going to include AI in my next edition, which people have asked me to do actually, what I would do is I would break it down into the pros and cons and where the programmer bias takes ethics. Can you really program out something that is certainly not acceptable in today's society? Can you program in an expectation curve, and can you meet the expectation curve of the other person? The AI doesn't have those nuances. And so it is an ongoing conversation of when will AI actually reach AGI, human-like intelligence? And the answer from most experts is, well, certainly not in this century. So we're looking 100 years out. We're looking 3-4 generations of humans out. And even then, they're still wondering, how do they get around the nuance curve? How do they fill in all those blanks? Virtue, dignity, respect. How do they build all those things in? And then how do they base it on the backstories and the forward stories of humans like we do automatically every day?
And I have a couple of other places because I really do feel like for the show, this is amazing conversation, and it really is things that we need to think about. Sometimes I believe as an entrepreneur who's an emerging entrepreneur, they're always looking for an edge, looking for an edge, looking for an edge. And sometimes we do that to a fault. And, one of the things I always say is, for ourselves in our business, we establish norms, we establish standards. What does the standards look like? Does AI adhere to actually the standard set that we have? And the other thing you talked about, I know about programming bias, there's bias, there's prejudice, there's a lot of little things that can happen in that. Talk about, what it is to have a norm or a standard and a bias and a prejudice, and why should we actually even be thinking about it?
Well, a standard is what you tolerate. It is not what you put on paper or, an expectation just based on the way normal business works is an unrealistic goal. If you have an expectation, at some point, either you or the receiver in the conversation is not going to understand the expectation. Therefore, they're going to fall short. Mm-hmm. So how do you establish a standard like that in business? The number one standard that goes forward from here is, how do we look for collaborative alliances that will allow us to thrive in an environment where we are not spending all of our time trying to compete? Because competing wastes energy, it wastes resources, when you really need to be looking for a spiral staircase where everyone can walk up. AI could do that. It's a tool that could balance some of the scales, but it always needs a human driving behind it saying, yeah, we can go here, but we're not going to go there. Yeah. So, AI mundane tasks, great. Human tasks, not so great.
Right. And here's another thing. It's like, AI is based upon a query, which is asking it a question, and the AI comes back with a response. And that response is in its own English silo. So that means whether you're in Georgia or whether you're in New York or whether you're in Hawaii, it's actually speaking a singular language that doesn't differentiate in the different places that you may be in, because we do have local dialects. We do have certain subtleties even in our language in different places. And when that response comes back, what's really interesting to me is, we could be creating a place where we're going to start finding what I call the theory of the world's best average, where, whatever we ask in questions comes back, and the answer is the same for me as it's the same for Dr. Joe, who's coming on, who's the same for Buddy Thornton. It's like, what are the 10 best things I should look for becoming a great speaker? Well, those 10 things, sure, it probably spits out the same answers to all three of us, but guess what? If we were nuanced about it and biased and had our own expectation for ourselves, we probably should actually be receiving 3 different variations of what comes back to us, through it. And so I really think that we have to, again, really look at AI in where does it really bloom for us? And I think that these are things that that we have to look at. Now, I don't know if you want to comment on that as well, but these are things that I've seen.
Yeah, actually, here's the thing. Behaviorists have to go with known variables. 99% of your life is spent within 50 miles of your home. And I know that sounds really odd, but if you think about how many hours there are in a day and how much time you spend in a week away from or versus, and when I say home, I'm not saying your house, but I'm saying your local neighborhood or your city. If we spend 99% of our time in one location and the broader world is only 1%, how applicable is it to everybody? And then when you apply that across the entire planet, 85% of the people will never in their entire lifetime get more than 500 miles from their original home. Then you realize that Americans obviously are a skewed factor. So then when you add in all the other variables like race, backstory, socioeconomic demographics, all the things that could play, how do we geofence AI and say, you know what, give me this answer based on only the city of Avondale and give it to me only for the demographic of minorities? Now the AI is going to go, okay, I got it. I've got an answer for you. But now, because you may be someone like Dr. Joe or myself who travel outside of our area, how applicable is that answer?
Yeah. In one last thing, because with AI and with what entrepreneurs are doing, I'm going to go back to the entrepreneurial edge. It's getting, we've kind of entered this whole new territory, and it's still building, and it's just like get others to do things for you. And so it's like outsource and outsource and outsource and outsource. But here's what the crazy thing about it. What's actually going on is this tremendous amount of information that goes out. And there's a tremendous amount, but it's going out many times as noise. And what happens is when people come back, if they respond to your noise, they're bringing noise back to you, creating an echo chamber where no one can hear. And so where I'm going with this is 4 years ago, before COVID, the average entrepreneur spent 2.5 hours of their working day immersed in social and or digital media or more out of their day. Now we fast forward and we're in 2024, May 2nd. And did you know that number hasn't changed? It's actually upticked a little bit. But here's the crazy thing. Not only has it upticked, that the advent of AI has also absorbed even more time from the entrepreneur, from people using it as what they feel is a tool. And so the average entrepreneur is using AI anywhere from 45 minutes additionally to an hour and a half additionally. And so you know what is happening? The entrepreneur is diving more into technology and less into what I call interpersonal communication, interpersonal relationships, interpersonal connecting. And so I call that AI absorption. It's absorbing our time more. And so we're actually creating human interactions even less. And I was wondering if you see that as well, buddy.
I do. People ask me, what is the value of being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a micropreneur, whatever you want to say? If you're in a business and you have less than 5 people working for you, people are not paying you for what you can outsource. They're paying you for your expertise. But if you are spending a lot of your time trying to embed AI into your processes, what you're doing is you're reducing your expertise to average expertise. Mm-hmm. And last time I checked, people don't pay for average. People pay for extraordinary. So what people really need to do is they need to understand that the things you can outsource are just fine, and they could go to an AI base. But the things that create you as you, the individual, really needs to be on a higher plane, and you cannot afford to drop into AI average. Yeah. Because if you do what you're doing, that AI absorption that you just talked about literally inundates your brain with so much extra information that now you will rarely get above average. The human brain always wants to excel, but it will also take the easiest path to get there.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful how much we integrate AI into the expertise area. It's okay to use it as a tool and use it in your outsource world, but don't use it in your expert world.
Yeah. And buddy, which leads me to like my last observation that I had with AI. And I hope everyone, this is, both valuable and important, this discussion that I'm having with Buddy Thornton is what I found. There was this old saying that said, what would Jesus do? And, what I'm finding now with a lot of entrepreneurs is they're becoming less reliant on their own intuition and their own, let's say, knowledge and skill set. And the new question seems to be, what would ChatGPT do? And I think, to borrow your phrase from your book series, I think it puts the business world, the entrepreneurial world, on a slippery slope. What say you?
Well, the biggest slippery slope is the expectation curve, what we were talking about earlier in the conversation. What level of expectation do you have on yourself? Do you believe you should be delivering average? Because if you want to deliver average, I'm not buying from you. Mm-hmm. So the entrepreneur has to target higher. And that question, what would ChatGPT do, is very easy to answer. Well, it's going to make you into just another faceless person in the crowd. Can you afford, as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, to be a faceless member of the crowd? I don't believe you can. So, that's where I would leave the conversation is, don't let AI make you faceless.
Yeah, absolutely. And buddy, we're coming up on time here, but a couple of different places. You're the editor of the Art of Connection book series. And I really just wanted to get you to comment a little bit on this book series. And for you, you have the ability to edit any book series in the world, anyone's books in the world, and you write your own books. What makes the Art of Connection book series so special to you? And if someone was to ask you, why should I be in that series, what would you tell them?
When I was first introduced to it, when we first met, I had a little doubt in the back of my mind. And then I dove into the process, and I dove into the group. I mean, just the membership of people who have written in the 4 books thus far gives you access to well over 1,000 people who are very intelligent, outgoing, heart-centered people. And it creates a relationship drive in your mind. Your mindset goes, wow, what can I learn from that person? You know what? You don't have time to make a one-on-one with 1,000 different people, but you know what? You can pick up a book, you can thumb to their page, and you can go, wow, I would have never thought they thought that way. I mean, to me, it's been an eye-opening experience. And I tell everybody, get the print version to show off. Get the Kindle version and carry it around in your smartphone as your walking Rolodex. If I need someone in the financial space, I can go and it's going to pop up Dr. Joe every time.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that as the series gets longer, 5, 6, 7, whatever books it goes to, it's just going to expand my personal Rolodex. And of course, I get to edit the book. So guess what? I get my fingers in that Rolodex earlier than anybody else.
I love that. And I tell you, the more you get into it, and I said this at one of our recent book signings, I used to think it was about the book, but what I found is it's about the people in the book. And by understanding that, and any author, if they understand that as well, they will see a big difference on what that book and the community means. And lastly, my last question, you are taking up the sword on something new, and that's Fighters for Hope with, 5-time world champion Randy Blake. Tell us a little bit about the mission of Fighters for Hope and how we can get a hold of you and or Randy Blake to support you.
Well, of course, it is a brand new venture, but fightersforhope.org will be a 501c3 once the paperwork is done. And we basically travel around the country putting on shows and educational events to teach people about mental health and how to prevent suicide through understanding suicide ideation, depression, and what are the coping mechanisms to get beyond that. It was born out of simply Randy reaching out to me one day and saying, buddy, you're an expert in behavior, and I just lost an 18-year-old in one of my clubs. How do we stop suicide? And just his question, all I said back was, well, Randy, if you want me to work with you, you have to commit. Do you have enough passion to follow through? And he said, absolutely. And now this is his new life mission. And he's jumped in with both feet and is clinging on with all of his toes and fingers. And the people who are joining us are just amazing people in the behavioral space. And they can get a hold of us right now through my phone number or my email. The website will be up and functional by sometime middle of May with our entire original board. And I just believe that we are going to make an incredible impact in this space. Mental health and suicide is actually the worst pandemic the world has ever seen. COVID pales by comparison.
Yeah. And it's not slowing down. It's you talk about a situation that's going viral. That's going viral. There we go. Let me go back here. I am with Buddy Thornton. He is the co-founder of Fighters for Hope. You can contact him at buddypscapro@gmail.com. Oh, I'm going to tongue tie all over that, buddy. My goodness. You can reach him through email, but better yet, this gentleman, I call him Human AI. He will even answer the phone. You can reach him at 480-861-1371. Again, that's 480-861-1371. Buddy, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for engaging me in this very useful and meaningful conversation, AI.
The honor was all mine, Robert.
Thank you, sir. Again, welcome back, everyone. And I just wanted to, just put a shout out for Marilyn Richards. She really attempted to get on the show with us today. She was not able to be a part of this show because they're having some terrible storms out where she lives. And the connection just wasn't stable enough for her to have us on the show. But you know what, thank you, buddy, so much for, the conversation about AI and what it looks like, to the entrepreneur, the author, the speaker, etc. I appreciate you each and every time that you come on this show. You are definitely a gift. And speaking of a gift, another really good friend of mine is coming on to the show. And this gentleman is Dr. Joe Blake. Dr. Joe, well, thank you for being on the show. I'm glad you're here.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, Robert. I tell you,
Yeah.
the community that you built is just so amazing. You know, Buddy was talking about Randy Boom Boom Blake. So, I got to meet him in Vegas, and uh, 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 Boom Boom is my brother from another mother, is what I
Yes.
say.
Yeah, you can't help but go boom boom when he walks into the room, can you?
Yeah, kickboxer. I was like, oh my, I will not get in the fight with you, young man.
Yeah. You need a lot of hope to go in the arena of that gentleman.
Yeah.
Everyone, I'm with Dr. Joseph Blake Jr. He's the founder of Actional Financial Literacy Center. You can contact him at Dr. Blake Jr. Jr. And that's at actionablefinancialliteracy.com. Or you know what, like Buddy, or just call him. Just call him. He'll pick up the phone at 623-748-7689. Again, Dr. Joe Blake, founder of Actionable Financial Literacy, 623-748-7689. And I don't know about you, but I was listening. I'm already playing back in the head my conversation with Buddy and in AI and what it looks like to us in the world of authorship. But I can't help but think, Dr. Joe, that AI has is making a substantial impact on our financial markets, our financial world, and even how certified financial planners run their business. I may be wrong, but if I'm right, could you speak to that?
Yes, it's called fintech. So it's finance and technology that come together one in one. And fintech it applies to the technology in financial institutions and how we deliver our services to our clients. And it really it tracks the money, how the money moves in real time, how banking now with like online is 24/7. People don't. Some of us remember that banking wasn't 24 hours at one point.
Right.
Now as you can pull your phone up and they have banking right there, and now you can transfer money instantly from one person to another. That's wasn't there always. We had to go to the bank actually physically to get things done. So that's for some people that's new, not always too. So it's just called fintech. So it's financial technology. That's the new way now.
Well, in fintech, it's amazing to me how far we've traveled just in our habits in the last 25 years. And 25 years ago, here we are writing checks. We're writing checks even at grocery stores, and we're waiting for them to authorize the check so we can take our groceries home. Now we just pull out a card, we just tap the darn register there, or the POS system, and all of a sudden it's like it almost takes the money before you can even see that you had the money there, right?
Yes, it's crazy. It is crazy. Either you tap the card or they scan the code on your cell phone.
Oh, it's just amazing. I just, it's like, how do we keep up with it? But it's the same. It's the same way that I always look. And like Buddy and I were talking about, when it comes to the financial markets, and when it comes to making me, create the foundation of my financial house, it's always about safety and security, though. It's always about, making sure not just that the markets, rise and fall, and I'm able to manage and you create money in my markets, but it's also knowing that, there's not going to be any technology breaches when I look up and the next day and all of a sudden my money's gone. And, I have a very good friend who actually, and here's something that's really happening is there are a lot of imposters there, and they pose as bankers, they pose as home loan specialists, they're posing as small business loans to entrepreneurs. And what they're doing is they're going out there, Dr. Joe, and they're taking the routing numbers, and they're taking the account numbers, and they're draining bank accounts because, dare I say it, AI has given them such a flashy storefront online, and and they're finding like these loopholes to get to people's access of their accounts. Have you seen that as well, and have you seen any horror stories because of that?
I've seen the horror stories and I've heard them as well. And there's a lot of cybersecurity that goes on. So generally, like if you're online, someone sends you inbox you with some information. They've requested your your routing number, your account number. That's some information you don't want to give. And in your inbox, and anytime they send you in inbox link, you don't want to touch. You don't want to download it. You don't want to touch that link and go to it. And sometimes they'll even make it look like it's your bank.
Right.
But your bank is not asking you for that information, because you would have to actually go to your bank's website. Now your bank wouldn't send you a link for you to click and go to it. You yourself would have to go to your bank and put that information in. And this is it's so rampant that sometimes what they'll do, they'll target certain people, older folks that may not know too much about technology, which is sad when they get the older folks that don't know, or the younger ones that may not have as much experience in that type of environment with technology, and or some that are disabled. So it's certain target areas, target groups they will get. So the thing is that you get somebody in your inbox, don't click it.
Yeah. And and the other thing is don't let them to come onto the phone and say, hey, give me your PIN. I mean,
Yes.
a PIN, I mean, my goodness, that is one of the two-factor authentication ways of keeping you protected. But if you give that PIN away, guess what? That protection ceases, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And sometimes they'll call this to get you to say hello on the phone, or is this your name? And sometimes you got to be mindful of that as well. And there's so many different little nuances that people try to, and it's sad to say, to get you on. So you got to be mindful as you go about, and be a caretaker of your identity when you're speaking on the phone, or because you don't want to be speaking on the phone about personal information and you have a whole sea of people around you. You don't want to do that, because you don't know who's listening in, where you're listening. So if you're gonna have a private conversation, have a private conversation in private.
Yeah.
Not when you're standing in the grocery line or in any other line someplace in a coffee shop about your personal business.
Well, in one of the things I've learned in one of the security classes that I was a part of is if you don't know the source, or you don't have a long-standing relationship with them, or if you haven't seen them in a brick and mortar store, etc., be very wary of saying yes over the phone. This class taught me what they can do is they can take you saying yes and utilize that against you by replicating your voice and going through a series or a process where they're using your voice to activate certain things by your voice saying yes. And so they said, say confirm. They said, learn how to say other acknowledgments without saying yes. And believe me, in business, I'm a firm believer of the yes. But when it comes to saying yes on the phone, be very wary of saying, if they call you up and they say, hey, are you Mr. Robert W. Jones? And then I say yes, they got you. So, that's something else that I've learned out there in my security and safety classes is be very wary of saying yes right out the gate.
And sometimes as an advisor, when you're sitting down talking to your clients, you yourself have to be aware of who you're working with also. So someone is older, and that you have to, that person may want to see you in person, or need to see you in person. And no matter where they are, you have to go there, and you have to be willing I just shared at a podcast last week on how helping others win. So that was how is how HOW, helping others win. The only way I can win is if I help my clients win, no matter where they are. So like I was sharing with you, I live in Goodyear, and I drove way out to Santan Valley. My client was 78 years old, but she needed to see me face to face to help her understand some documents. So an hour and 20 minutes I drove.
That's one way, everyone. That's one way. And it takes an hour and 20 minutes to get back, doesn't it?
It sure did. But I felt better because I went to see her face to face and helped her understand some papers that she had, and can't do it over the phone, and so she felt better. And I prayed with her while I was there, and came back. Because when you know someone needs to see you face to face, distance doesn't matter. Because the man upstairs looking at you, making sure you do what you're supposed to do to help this client out. So as an advisor, you have to be able to see your client has that need, and you feel that need for your client.
Dr. Joe, and you go beyond, I would say the scope, so to speak, of having the advisor hat on. You take pride in bringing financial literacy to the world, and you've even ticked it to something that you call financial legacy. And I think it's very important for people to understand, financial planning versus what you're attempting to do, a financial literacy, but even more so, what does financial legacy mean when it comes to the clients that you work with?
Well, what I do is what God has given me is a trilogy that I teach. Financial literacy is gaining access to economic information and making use of it. That legacy is something that you create that lasts for generations in a family. So that legacy is, once you get the knowledge and wisdom and understanding, you take that knowledge and you share it with your family, your loved ones, and whoever you leading in your life. And that creates a legacy for generation to the generations. Because I read the Bible a lot, but in the word it said, a good father or mother leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Now that inheritance doesn't necessarily mean money all the time. Money is a part of it, but that inheritance could be knowledge, could be wisdom, could be understanding about how to build things, build a business, build a relationship. Obviously money comes with it too, but how to build that from one generation to the next, so there'll never be another, non-having person in the family. So and there's a third book that comes with it, but first one is a literacy, and the second one is a legacy, and that's how God gave it to me. And the third one comes in a couple of years.
Well, and when you're talking about that, see, we're also so conditioned many times of passing down a legacy, and many times that's always been the family business. And so, dad owns the dry cleaners, or mom owns the accounting business, or grandpa owns the farm, or whatever it looks like. And the kids, not always, but many times, they don't want to have anything to do with what the parent had. And so,
right.
There's this generational wealth in the family business that doesn't get passed on. The stewardship of it,
Right.
evaporates. It goes away. It's sold. It goes bankrupt. It does this. But, one of the things I think that you like in this generational wealth is, there's this whole new concept called I think it's called the financial family business. And so, I may not want to be the dry cleaner. I may not want to be the accountant. I may not want to own the family farm, but if I understand how to create a process of wealth accumulation, the wealth can be transferred in spite of the businesses that created it, right?
Yep, that's true. That's true. Because I deal with finance and everything, but I have a son. He likes real estate. That's not my cup of tea, but that's his. So he does that. I have another son. He actually does cybersecurity, and he's got the certifications for it and everything. That's his cup of tea. And I have another daughter, and she likes arts and craft type things. And she's still in the army right now, but when she's done with the army, she actually owned a car lot once before too. But they all have their means of doing their thing. But dad's got these to kind of guide them as their assets grow. They know how to grow it. So it's not that they got to follow dad. Dad got something for them to follow. And it's a process they can teach to their children and their children's children. And I share, like I said, I share with my clients too. I let my clients know about it. And well, that's how the books become number one, because it's not just everybody do this. Is that you can share this, and so everybody can have an idea of what to do, as they generate the wealth for their own families.
Well, and what's amazing about that, it kind of goes back to it's you can give them the stuff, but better yet, if you're going to give them the stuff, give them the knowledge to go with that stuff so they can be better prepared to manage and grow and appropriate monies and wealth the way that it needs to be managed. And I think that's what you do in for your family and other people as well. And I see that, you do that tirelessly. But, the other things that are really amazing is much of how you teach is also very biblically based. And you kind of touched on it a little bit. And not every financial planner actually brings God into the conversation, but you bring God into the conversation because I think sometimes we toil in our works, and maybe sometimes we forget that God has given us grace, but the other thing is I don't think that God intends for us to live in abject poverty, does he?
No, he doesn't. I mean, there's like over 3,000 scripture that talks about money in the Bible. And sometimes people run away with it, but they don't understand that money is just a tool. It's just a tool that we use for exchange. It's just a tool that we use because money in the United States is a dollar. This is a euro. This is from Thailand. This is a baht. This is from Zimbabwe. There's different tools out there, but you can't take a Cambodian dollar and use it in Thailand. You can't. You can't take a Zimbabwe dollar and use it in Japan. You can't, because the money is what that society says money is. But the chair I'm sitting in, the chair you're sitting in, you can take that idea of a chair and sell that idea anywhere. Yeah. So that's creating wealth. You have an idea, you can like the Art of Connection book. How many countries is that sold in?
Yeah, probably 30 countries right now. Yep, absolutely. So I mean, there's like this drop down that goes with all these different countries that you can pick. Who knew?
Yeah, that's an idea. And no matter where you at, boom.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Buddy put in the private chat. He says, God's grace allows us to live through faith. And I mean, and really, what is it about today? We're coming in. We have this next generation of kids coming up, and it's what we're on Z now. I think we call them Generation Z. Uh-huh. And the kids, they are looking at money very differently than their parents and their parents' generation. And I'm just wondering, what your take is on that.
Those are my grandkids, man.
Right. Yeah.
They have a different look on things, It's like my grandson. We were buying a gift for my oldest daughter, my wife. She's Jessica, and then my son-in-law, right? Because their birthdays come first with all the other kids, and they say, "Okay, we're gonna get this right here. We're gonna get this right here and go there right here. Okay, all right. What store we didn't go to? Store? We're not going to the store. We're gonna get that on Amazon." I was like, "Oh, Amazon." So the going to the store had missed the whole. They automatically went to the cyber fintech with the get online, and so the thought of we go to stores, we go shopping to the store and put it in the bag and everything. No, they didn't skip past the whole thing. Don't need to touch the dirty money thing. They did, and no money exchange. They wouldn't go online with it. So they're already gone.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. My boys, they like, what do we need to go to the store for? The only reason why they ever go to the store is because they're coming with me. They go straight to Amazon, or they go straight to the store. They buy it and send it, and then they go back to playing games or studying or doing chores. That's it. That's their life.
Yeah. So what it's going to look like later, I'm not sure, but I know that the parts that we used to do when it came with money, to go to the store, go to the pinball machines and play pinballs, that's not there like it was.
Yeah. Well, and like with me when I was a kid, I tell you what, for me anyway, I don't know, like I'm old enough, I'm an older dad, but you and I are pretty close to the same age. But here's the thing: when I was a kid and I earned my money and I put it in my wallet, or I went to the bank and I had a passbook. Remember passbooks?
Yeah.
You write it down and you put your money in. You got to keep track of the darn thing because there's no computer taking track of it for you. And but it's like when I paid and I went, 5, 10, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23, and pulled out my change. It's like I felt my wealth go away, and it's like, when I look at Troy and Aiden, I look at them spend, and I don't know if they feel that wealth go away. I don't know if they feel like that 23, or now it's probably $223 for the same thing I bought as a kid. I'm really wondering if they can see in their mind, the zeros either going up or the zeros either going down. And it really kind of makes me wonder, how much financial literacy do they get out there? Because believe me, those companies that build those websites, they know how to get that credit card information from them.
They do. And not only credit card information, because now they got the Cash App thing. So cash is, because my grandson said, you can just Cash App it, Grandpa. What do you know about Cash App? Yeah, so it's starting younger. So that's why you got to catch them. The one principle that I use with my kids that seems to work is I tell them, if you read this book right here, Grandpa, I'll pay you $50.
Hey, that sounds pretty good. And cash or Cash App?
I say cash, but
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah, but somehow you got to catch them, because by the time they get to be adults, it's going to be like, hey, you got to get a handle a little beforehand.
Yeah. Well, so let's kind of start at that beginning just a little bit. I mean, a new entrepreneur, someone who's just, coming into their world and they're thinking about building their financial legacy. I mean, I think the better the start, the better the finish. I've always felt that way. And, your conversation has to start with a great start. And if you get that great start going, the likelihood of success into the future, is more likely. And so when you're helping someone take that first step into building that financial future, what does that conversation look like?
You start small and then you work your way up. And you have to, when you start, I talk about the 4 windows of success. There's 4 basic plans you should have: short term, long term, a fun and the I love me fun. The fun is retirement, because when you retire, you want to just have fun. The I love me one, that's for if you're going, like I use the I love me for that's my Best Buy fun.
the best Buy fun. I love it. Okay.
And my wife
now, do you go to the website or do you actually go to Best Buy?
Oh, me, man, I go to the store.
Yeah, you go to the store.
But you need 4 basic funds to get you going, and you start those 4 funds before you go out and buy individual stocks. So individual stocks is another game you play, but you need to have those 4 basic funds first, and you build those 4 funds up. And as they build up, then you can start playing games with individual programs. And those 4 funds, you can start those 4 with little as if it's 50-50. Like if you have $200 a month, start those 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get those 4 and then you keep going. Because if you don't start and stick to those 4, 10 to 15 years down the road, you're going to wish you would have. Because if not, you're going to have too much debt.
And just really recently, I was going through some financial conversation with my older son, and I said, hey, Troy, if you are able to earn $35,000 and put it into an instrument or vehicle that'll earn you 5 to 6% in 40 years, when you're ready to not perspire or inspire, but when you're getting ready to retire, it will be worth over $1 million. And I do not think that we set up our children for that type of success. And, $35,000 now can be your $1 million fund in the future. And that's how powerful building the correct financial house is.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe, I mean, it's like an hour goes like that. Everyone, I am with Dr. Joseph Blake Jr. He's a founder of Actionable Financial Literacy Center. You can contact him at Dr. Blake Jr. And so it's Dr. Blake Jr. at actionablefinancialliteracy.com, or call him at 623-748-7689. And he does do house calls. Even if you're an hour and a half away, he will do a house call, and he can be your financial planner. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for being on today. The last month, everyone, we've had all military veterans on the show. And, for the month of April and for the month of May, I'm doing my best to celebrate vets by bringing them onto the show and getting them to talk with us. Dr. Joe, have a great day. Thank you, sir.
You too, Robert.
Again, I was with Dr. Joe Blake, a fellow vet like myself and Buddy Thornton. So thankful that they're here today. Remember, you can come to this show each and every Thursday through the IIRP Radio Network. You can see us on LinkedIn. You can see us on YouTube. You can see us wherever they send us, the tech people send us. But, please just come out, have some fun with us, make some comments into whatever social media that you're using. Again, we meet here every Thursday, 2:30 to 3:30 Pacific time. We're that crazy state called Arizona. So the other half of the year, we're on Mountain Time. Make it a great day, everyone, and hope to see you next week. Thank you.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Ooh, Dr. Joe left us. I was hoping he'd stay behind just for a moment. Darn it.
Very interesting show.
Is that good or bad?
No. I mean, I'm telling you, I did send everything this morning, and she said she had it. So I was like, you mad-libbed that really well. I mean, you ran with the topic, and we put it together with absolutely no rehearsal, no planning, no nothing.
I thought it worked out well, and I thought, I'm just going to take it right into Dr. Joe and really create this as a show that kind of has a theme. And it really has been I've been kind of looking at the shows maybe in the sense of normally it's always kind of been about who you are and what you do, and a little bit of the story of the who and the why that got you there. And I think that maybe what would create a little bit more value on the show is that we do create a little bit of time digging a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and